Hey everyone, and welcome back to Flo from Art with Flo. How are you, Flo?
Hi, thank you. I'm doing fine,
Flo,
really.
what are you going to be sharing today?
I will be showing 7 tips on how to improve your portrait paintings. I have made a portrait with some, flaws that I regularly see in beginner portraits, and I will show how you can fix those, how you can improve those 7 things in your portrait.
What I love about this session is it's so actionable. Like, it's always inspiring and helpful to watch people work and watch their workflow. But I think the fact you're actually addressing this point by point, people are going to come away with some real actionable, practical tips to make your work better.
I will do my best.
So without further ado, would you like to share your screen and we'll jump right in?
So I've made a portrait that has some flaws in it. Maybe you can already spot them. First flaw I'm seeing is the skin color. It kind of looks like, she didn't have a very great week, I guess. She looks a bit, almost like dead. I have only used one hue for this skin color, no variation, while in real skin color, you will see lots of variation, not just one hue, but lots of hues. You'll see warm colors and cooler colors. So I am going to add those. I have a layer with the entire face on it. You can see I have one layer for the face, 2 layers for hair, one for the hair in front and one for the hair in the back, and a layer for the lashes. So the entire face is just slammed on one layer. I am going to set it to alpha lock, so I won't be able to paint outside of that face, outside of that layer, and I am going to use my overlay brush. It's my favorite brush to add color variation to any painting, actually. And it's very easy. I can just pick a warm color, like a reddish color, and I can go over the face. I'm at 30% in size for my brush, and I can just glaze over and add more color.
We're going to bring this lady back to life.
Yeah. Make her look a bit more healthy.
You know what? I can already tell whenever you give a tip, myself and a lot of people watching are probably going to nod along and go, oh yeah, of course. But it's not until someone tells you that you realize you've been doing it. And I know when I've done a lot of art, it gets this super flat, it looks like a child's done it. Even if the line work is okay, because it's so flat, you're just going like, here's, one skin color.
So I'm using reds and also pinks to add that variation.
Very cool.
And you can also add some blues. You can pick really saturated colors. And for instance, around the cheeks, the, what are they called? Like your blood vessels, they are near the surface of your skin. So that area gets a little red, and around the nose as well, while the forehead and the chin, it's closer to your bone, it's less skin, and it'll be a bit cooler. So I try to focus the warmer colors around the cheeks and the nose.
Why the nose? Because that's got a bit more flesh, I guess. I'm like holding my own face now. If everyone can do this. So you've got like a bonier chin, you've got fleshier cheeks.
Yeah, but like the nose, you might notice when you drink something that your nose also gets red. It tends to get red pretty fast.
I don't know what you're trying to infer.
So yeah, we got
that makes sense.
Some nice color variation, and we can check the difference. This was the before, and this is after. So you got a lot more color variation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is look at your edges in your portraits. I sometimes see portraits where lots of the edges are very soft and blurry, or all of the edges are really crisp and there's no like balance. For instance, here around the jaw, I have made a blurry line now, blurry edge. Wow. If you would look at this lady for real, you would see a pretty crisp edge between that jawline and that dark background of that hair. It won't be blurry looking. So we need to fix that. I'm going to grab an eraser and I'll just set it to the basic flow brush. I'm just going over with the eraser, making this edge look more crisp. Yeah, defuzzing it. It's really important to check your edges in your portrait or in any realistic type of painting. Edges and the balance between soft edges and more crisp edges are really important. Now I'm here around the neck on the left side, making that look a bit more crisp as well. And let's check the difference here. Here's with the fuzzy, soft edges around the jaw, and here we have those crisp edges. It's already starting to look better, this portrait.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're not there yet. We can
But
see
huge difference already.
We can see another edge here that shouldn't be here, and that's around the lips. Unless someone is wearing like lip liner, you won't see a very crisp, hard edge around the lips. It'll be blended with the skin around it a bit more. So
when you're erasing, are you using Alpha Lock still?
That just works. You don't have to turn off Alpha Lock to erase. So my layer is still, Alpha Lock is still turned on. So I'm grabbing the basic flow brush, and I'll just pick the skin color here, and I'll start to go over those lips. Because I want to merge those lips with the skin some more. So I'll pick local colors also from the lips. I'll make the brush a bit smaller, around 20%. Getting rid of that harsh outline.
And are you clipping to the lips here, or you're just painting over them?
Just painting over them. Mm-hmm. I always prefer just working on one layer or a very small amount of layers. I try to keep things simple. I'm not sure why people would want to use a whole lot of layers. I try to keep it simple and try to think of what would be logical to put on a different layer. For instance, lashes. I like to put those on a separate layer because then I can always paint behind those lashes and I don't want to blur them. But for skin and for a nose or lips, there's no need to paint behind them or anything like that. For hair, it's also more logical to put it on a separate layer, or clothing. But for the skin, I just want everything on a single layer so I can blend easily and don't get myself confused with all the layers.
I think the blending point is a big one, and you've obviously joined us in the past for several sessions, and I think it makes complete sense because when everything's on an individual layer, you can't blend between different elements, and you seem to have so much control. I guess does some of that come with confidence? Because I think a lot of people use layers and that non-destructive workflow when they're starting out. You know, it's like a safety blanket.
Yeah, but you can also just duplicate your layer with everything on it, and then you'll always have a backup. If you're painting on that duplicate layer and you don't like what you've been doing, then you can always just take a step back. Mm-hmm. I'm using a bit of a darker color for that upper lip because the light is coming from above, and that upper lip will be a bit darker than the lower lip. And while we were talking about blending, let me just grab the blender. Let me grab the smudge tool. I'll use my standard blender, which is in the basic brush set. And I'll just go over that edge a bit, softening it even more. So that outline, that outside of the lips, that should have quite a soft transition, but between the lips, you'll see a pretty hard edge. And I can use the darken line brush to make that even darker. You can just pick up a local color and that'll make it a bit darker. I always like to use that brush for darker details, adding like shadow lines, like these lines between the lips, or some shadows around eyes, creases. So we've softened it up a little bit. Let's check the difference here. That looks better, I think.
She's starting to look a bit more human.
Yeah.
I did the other day. I watched the Addams Family movie. They put it on Netflix, and I'm getting Addams Family vibes in the original.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So next tip, we're at tip number 4. What I notice is that these eyes, they don't look very human either. They look very white. And even though it's called white of the eye, I think it's called that, but it's not actually white. I prefer using a shade of gray for the white of the eye, darkening it up, because this doesn't look very natural, as if these eyes are like illuminated, if they are almost like lights, headlights. So we'll go for a grayish color, perhaps something like this. And I'm just using the basic flow brush. I can go even darker. And it might feel very dark, this gray, but it'll definitely look better than that white.
Again, I know when I've drawn in the past, like I'm almost scared to darken the eyes too much. Is that quite common with your students?
Well, I don't know if they're scared. They haven't told you.
No, I mean, do you see that from many of your students where they're kind of hesitant to darken the eyes too much because it almost feels like what you shouldn't be doing?
Yeah, well, I haven't. I don't remember seeing it with the work of my students. But yeah, I can totally imagine it's scary, because when you look at this gray, it looks so dark. And you feel like, well, that can't be a correct color for an eye. But when you apply it, you'll see that it'll look a lot better. So I'm trying to work on both eyes at the same time right now. It's a bit messy. I can use the Smudge Tool to soften it up a little bit, blend it a bit. And I'll make that top part a bit darker than that lower part, because that lower part will get hit by light a bit more than the top part. Let's go even darker. Because a shadow will be here at the top.
Should you use gray to paint the eyes initially and then build them up from there? So do you actually start with gray and then kind of work back, or do you do what you're doing right now and you start with white and then you bring some gray in?
No, I never start with white. I would start with the gray color, or whatever color, as long as it's color and not white. It could be anything. It could be that I started with flesh color all over, and then adding a grayish color, but I would never start with white there. So this is not my regular way of working. I don't make a weird looking portrait first and then fixing it. This is just for you. Still a bit too light. We can go even darker. I can grab the darken line brush and darkening it a bit that way.
How do you know when to stop? Or do you take it too far and then, scale it back because it just looks a bit over the top?
The white or the gray, or what do you mean?
The gray, because I appreciate, you're a professional, and so for you, you've done this so many times, but for someone that's going to try and do this after the session, how do they know when to stop building up shadow and it becomes too much?
Well, I would rather go too far with the shadow and then just fix it and add a bit more light. I always prefer working from dark to light rather than from light to dark. In this case, you can always add a little bit more light to that eyeball, adding some almost white tones, lightening some parts up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would do.
Okay.
So let's check the difference. Now it's not white anymore, but definitely already looking more natural.
It's got so much more depth. Yeah, everyone's definitely going to agree. It's so much more depth. And again, I think this is a real kind of beginner problem where your drawing looks so flat.
Yeah.
It's just flat shapes with flat solid fills and flat outline strokes. And obviously that's not how people look.
Yeah, and then another thing I often notice is that people tend to forget to draw in the eyelids. Right now you can see this eye. It doesn't have that crease on top. Let me show what I mean, because that eyeball, it has volume, and you'll see a crease here at the top.
Is this tip number 5, Flo?
Yeah, this is tip number 5. Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm using the darker line brush. I always love using that for stuff like this, because you can just pick up local colors and add a dark crease like this. And you'll also see a little crease here at the bottom eyelid. So you'll see that volume of the eyeball. And let's do that on the other side as well. So I've added these eyelids now. Let's again check the difference.
Wow.
They're not perfect. These were just quickly made, but it is starting to look more like real eyes. Mm-hmm. One thing that's still bugging here though are those eyelashes. They kind of look like spiders. They all have the same thickness, the same curve. They don't look very natural. So we are going to remove those for tip number 7. Let me just erase all of these eyelashes. And I will be moving to my lashes brush, which can be found in my eye brush set. Let me check the thickness. Oh, I'm at 29%. And yeah, the lashes on the right side, they'll curve like this. And when you go to the left side of the eye, they will curve the other way around. And they'll also be a bit shorter than the ones on the outside of the eye. So you have to vary the thickness, vary the curves a bit, and don't go for that spider look with all of the same curves, same thickness.
Growing up in the UK, I seem to remember in the 90s that was quite a popular look.
Yeah. Yeah, there were some other things popular back then as well, but I'm glad we're not seeing them anymore. And here at the like in the middle, they'll just go straight up, and then towards the left, they'll curve to the left. Now we have that bottom eyelid, the lower eyelid there. The lashes will be shorter and they will clump together a little bit. They're also a bit thinner, so I'll use a bit less pressure here.
Is this brush pressure sensitive?
Yeah. Yeah, this is very low pressure, and this is when I press really hard.
Oh, wow. That's if you're going to a goth night or something.
Yeah. Then for the other eye. And I just try to work all over that eyelid. I don't go from left to right and then make a neat little row. By making eyelashes all over that eyelid, I can balance them more easily and vary them up.
This step really is adding a lot, actually.
Yeah.
And not just the the thickness, but the difference between the upper and the lower eyelashes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's what I also see regularly, that the upper and the lower eyelids, lashes, that they look the same. Like, yeah, that's really that spider look. To stay in the Addams Family theme. Well, it's almost Halloween.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting to see the difference in lash thickness and how you don't draw absolutely every hair. And I can see, especially with those lower lashes, it's almost like less is more.
Yeah.
People have a tendency just to fill it like the thickest set of eyelashes ever, but it looks unnatural.
But for a lot of people, those lower eyelashes are very light and you can barely see them. You could also go for a very light, slightly brownish color for those lower eyelids. Like, this is a lady and she's probably wearing mascara, so they'll be a bit darker. But yeah, for someone not using any makeup, or for like a male, those won't be very visible, those lower eyelashes. So I just go for like a brownish color, a lighter color, so they won't stand out too much.
What color eyes do you have, Flo?
Green with a touch of brown.
Okay. Pretty unique.
Stop a bit here. All right, let's check the difference again for tip number 6. These were the spider lashes, and now we have more natural lashes.
Beautiful.
Quite a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Then for the final tip, I would like to move to the hair. It kind of looks like she hasn't washed it, really hasn't done any styling with her hair. It looks very flat, just one color. And I would like to add some variation to that. Yeah, let me go to my hairbrush set. I have used, in this case, I have used my hair blocking brush to block in the shape of the hair. We can do some more blocking, actually. Adding a bit more shapes. I want to add more color variation to the hair, and yeah, vary those shapes a bit. It looks very flat right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to add a bit of curls. And when I paint hair, I always try to imagine a bit like I'm combing the hair, following that flow, following the flow of the hair.
Don't follow Flo. She doesn't like it. It gets a bit creepy.
I'm trying to make long flowing strokes.
And did you sample from the existing hair in terms of the color?
I sampled a bit and then I moved around the color wheel towards a bit of a warmer tone, made it a bit darker. So I try to stay close to the original color, but try to vary it up a little bit. So we're not going to add green or anything for the color variation. We try to stay close to the initial color. And then I like to use my smudgy hairbrush. It's a bit smudgy and it's a hairbrush. And yeah, I like to add more hair texture with that. I'm going to add a bit of a lighter brown color. Well, I can go even lighter.
I feel like you need to give us a bit of a narration, like you're working at a salon or something. It's like, am I going to breathe some life into this flat and lifeless hair now? Make you feel like a new woman.
Yeah, I wish it would really work this way for my own my own hair, that I could paint on my own hair. And for hair as well, I also like using that overlay brush to add a color variation. Right now, just using a hairbrush. But you can definitely just turn on alpha lock on a layer like this and use that, that overlay brush. And for instance, we can add some reddish, orange-like tones. And then you can easily, yeah, add some color like a shampoo, a color shampoo into her hair. I'll turn off alpha lock again. I want to add some more hair. Another brush I like using is the darken and the lighten hairbrush as well, to add darker areas in the hair and lighter areas.
And Flo, how are you choosing which areas to lighten and darken?
I try to look at like clumps of hair, and underneath those clumps you'll see a bit of shadow for these curls, so I'll try to go a bit darker there, and those clumps that stand out a bit more, I'll add more lighter hairs to the, oh, it's moving around, to the top of that hair.
And which bit are you working on right now?
Right now
just
I'm
so
at the
people
top.
can follow along.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm at the top right now. I usually work all over, so it's hard to keep track, I can imagine.
Would you mind? Yeah, I was going to say, would you mind just zooming in on one area that you're working on?
Yeah, right now here.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, we can see that.
And I also like using my hairbrushes as a smudge tool. I'll go to the smudge tool and use that smudgy hairbrush. And it's a great way to comb the hair, to make that texture a bit softer if it's starting to look a bit too like hairy, a bit too textured.
Yeah.
And I also like using it near the hairline. I already did that in the initial portrait here, but you can drag the hair on top of the skin with that smudge tool and make it merge with that skin as if it's, well, really growing out of that skin. You can make that area merge nicely by just dragging that hair area onto the skin. Yeah, it's hard to try and show and tell so many things in just 1 hour.
Oh no, you're doing amazing though.
I just want to add some lighter hairs with that lighter brush Okay, you can just pick a local color as long as you make sure that you're on the layer on which the hair is. You can just go over it and it'll lighten that hair up.
Very therapeutic always to watch you work, Flo.
Well, thank you. It's also very therapeutic for me as well to just draw. More therapeutic when I'm just alone on the couch, of course, instead of with lots of people watching. But yeah, it's always like meditation. With this portrait, there are still lots of things that you can improve. The skin needs a bit more blending, needs some texture. I already went ahead and applied all of those things and improved the hair and the eyes all quite a bit more. And this is what what it ended up to look like.
Damn, that's incredible.
So I worked on those eyes more, well, on everything actually, worked on adding skin texture using my skin brushes. Yeah, I can't do this in like 45
half an
minutes,
hour.
unfortunately. But I did apply everything, all the tips here that I talked about, so we can see the difference. First of all, we went for that color variation in the skin. So we added warm tones and cooler tones with that overlay brush with some reds and pinks and blues to make that skin look more alive. Then we had that fuzzy jaw.
And Flo, your Instagram is at Art with Flo?
No, it's Floortje's art, actually.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I believe Art with Flo is taken, perhaps by some of my followers. I don't know.
There we go. Yeah. It's because whenever I try and find you on Instagram, I just type your name in and it comes up. But yes, tag all of us up. I'm sure Flo would love to check out what you're learning and what you're working on and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So those edges here in my initial painting, you saw that fuzzy jawline, which is kind of weird because we don't have like fuzzy jawlines. You need a crisp looking edge there. Like here you see high contrast between the jawline and the dark hair that's behind it. So really try to focus on edges in your portraits or in any realistic painting. Actually get that balance between soft transitions. For instance, around that nose bridge, you will see a soft transition from that highlight on top of the nose, on the nose bridge towards the cheek. That's a soft transition. And around the jaw, but also around the nose, those nose holes, you'll see hard edges, crisp edges there. Then we had those lips. Lips usually don't have these outlines unless it's a bit old-fashioned, I think. If you have a like lip liner, very prominent lip liner, I wouldn't wear it, but yeah, who knows? That would be the only case in which you would see a line around the lips. It looks way more natural if you have a soft transition going from the lips towards the skin surrounding it. So, and you just have a crisp looking line between the lips and not on the outside of the lips. Then the eyes, that white of the eye, it's not actually white. It's way better to go for a darker color, like a grayish tone to, instead of white, go for a warm gray or a cool gray and add that shadow on top of the eyeball because light is coming from above and that upper eyelid, it will cast a shadow on that eyeball, and then white would look really unnatural. Then we had the eyelids. Here in the initial painting, you don't see a crease, you just see flat eyes slammed on top of that face. But that eyeball, it has volume, and you'll see that lower and that upper eyelid with a crease. Not sure what else to say about that. You read like a fold. That skin is wrapped around that eyeball a bit, and you'll see that crease.
That depth flow. My notes, I wrote down all 7 points. Some of my notes are ridiculous. 4.5, I just wrote in capital letters, people have eyelids.
What a good one to remember. Awesome. Yeah. Then we had the eyelashes. Here we have the spider look where all of the lashes have about the same length, same curves, same thickness, but it'll look more natural if you vary the length, the curve, the thickness, and those upper eyelids, they will have longer eyelashes. Usually, I've never seen anyone with long, low eyelashes and short upper eyelashes. So make those longer. Whenever someone's using mascara, they will clump together a little bit, be a bit darker. And those lower eyelashes, they are pretty short, a bit thinner,
Mhm.
and they tend to group together a bit. And then finally we had the hair. This is looking a bit lifeless and flat, just one color. It'll look more natural if you add more color variation and more contrast here. So yeah, those
Amazing.
were my 7 tips to improve your portrait paintings.
Flo, I think you've genuinely outdone yourself. That was so cool.
Thank you. Glad you liked it.
Amazing. I did. I loved it. Everyone, let's give it up for Flo in the comments. Show as much positivity if you got value from that, which I know you did. That was just one of my favorite sessions, and the transformation is astounding. No, nothing short of astounding. I'm honestly amazed. Always amazed by your talent, Flo. So thank you so much. Let's give it up for Flo.
It was my pleasure.
Flo, thank you again, and I'll catch you really soon.
Yay. Bye, everyone.
Have a great day.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.